Welcome, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're going to be exploring how Asia became obsessed with luxury brands.
It's a fascinating topic.
We're looking at this book called The Cult of the Luxury Brand. Let me
Uh,
tell you, it unpacks some really interesting cultural and economic forces behind this whole phenomenon.
Absolutely.
Did you know that 94% of women in their 20s in Tokyo own at least one Louis Vuitton? I mean, wow.
That's quite a statistic. Speaks volumes about the brand's reach.
We're going to be focusing on personal luxury goods, think handbags, watches, jewelry, those everyday items that people use to, well, express themselves. And of course, signal their status.
It's about more than just the product itself. It's the image, the message it sends. It's fascinating how these items weave a story of both individual aspirations and social dynamics, especially in these rapidly changing Asian economies.
So true. Okay, so how did this Asian luxury craze even begin? Luxury used to be this European elite thing. How did it make the jump to the Asian mass market?
Well, you have to go back to the 1990s. European luxury brands, they realized they needed to expand beyond their traditional, very exclusive clientele.
And that's where the whole democratization of luxury comes in, right?
Exactly. Brands like Gucci and Louis Vuitton, they started targeting a much wider market.
And that's where the power of the logo comes in. I mean, Asian consumers, they were eager to showcase their newfound wealth and status. And what better way than a recognizable logo?
The logo became the ultimate status symbol. It was marketing genius, really. Suddenly, you could tell someone's social standing just by glancing at their handbag.
Talk about instant recognition. And the numbers don't lie. Over half the revenue for many of those top luxury brands now comes from Asia.
The Asian market is undeniably crucial for these brands.
So understanding the Asian consumer is like essential.
Right, absolutely. But it's not just about economics. We have to delve deeper, look into the cultural and historical factors driving this consumption.
Like face and social harmony.
Exactly. In many Asian cultures, maintaining a positive social image, fitting in, that's highly valued, and luxury goods play a role in that.
It's like this unspoken pressure to conform, almost.
In a way, yes. And then there's kiasu, this fear of losing out concept prevalent in a lot of Asian societies.
So you have to keep up with the trends, have the latest items.
Precisely. It creates this sense of urgency, almost like you're missing out if you don't have the newest luxury item.
Makes sense. Let's turn to Japan. They were kind of the trailblazers, right? The first Asian country to really experience this luxury boom.
They were at the forefront. What's interesting about Japan is that their luxury boom happened during an economic downturn. And this is where you see the rise of parasite singles.
Parasite singles, what's that?
Basically, these are young, unmarried women, often living with their parents, who suddenly had all this disposable income.
Ah, so they spent it on luxury goods.
Exactly. It was a way to express themselves, to indulge in something that brought them joy.
It's kind of like an instead of thing, right?
Mhm.
Because Japan, space is limited. Not everyone can have a big house or a fancy car, so luxury possessions become the main way to show status.
That's a great point. And Japanese luxury culture is interesting because it's not as much about showing off, it's more understated. It's about brand knowledge, quality, craftsmanship, the subtle
A
details.
quiet kind of luxury. Okay, let's talk about China, the economic powerhouse.
China's economic growth has created this massive new market for luxury goods. And what's fascinating is the contrast between old money and new money.
Different approaches to luxury.
Totally. The newly affluent, they're in the show-off phase. They want everyone to know they've made it. Think big logos, flashy design.
And a strong preference for Western brands, right?
Absolutely. Western brands, especially European ones, are often seen as symbols of superior quality and prestige.
Unlike Japan's subtle approach.
Exactly. In China, it's about making a statement. Boldly.
Gotcha. What about South Korea? They have this interesting mix of, like, Confucian frugality, but also this growing fascination with luxury.
It's a fascinating push and pull. On one hand, there's this cultural emphasis on saving and avoiding extravagant spending. But at the same time, there's this urge to acquire luxury goods.
The book calls it beauty and debt.
A very apt description. South Korea has this national obsession with beauty.
So you have this booming plastic surgery industry, tons of skincare products, all fueled by easy access to credit.
Which can lead to debt, of course.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. And then there's the whole genuine fakes phenomenon.
Where people buy counterfeit luxury goods.
Exactly. It shows just how strong the demand for these products is, even if it means getting a fake.
Wow. Now, India. They've got this mix of old money, new money, and this rising young money segment.
India is such a diverse and complex market. It's both challenging and full of opportunities for luxury brands.
And we can't forget about the cultural significance of weddings and gift-giving in India, right?
Absolutely. Huge opportunities for luxury brands to tap into those traditions, but understanding the nuances of each segment is key.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from Japan to China to South Korea to India. But what about the future of luxury in Asia? Where's all this headed?
That's where things get really interesting. Will Asian luxury brands rise up and challenge the Western brands? Will men become even bigger consumers of luxury goods? What about this trend towards stealth wealth? So many questions. We'll explore those and more when we come back. Welcome back. Ready to uncover some more fascinating insights into Asia's love affair with luxury?
I'm all ears. The book talks about some really intriguing social groups that are major players in the luxury game, like Taites. Can you tell us more about them?
Ah, the Taites. Affluent, often married women, think of them as the ultimate tastemakers in the luxury world.
They have a certain reputation for being, well, big spenders.
Let's just say they're not afraid to flaunt their wealth. Brands like Chanel, Hermes, Cartier, those are their go-tos.
Makes sense. The book also mentions mistresses and junior wives. Kind of a delicate subject.
It is a bit sensitive, but their role in luxury consumption can't be ignored. Think extravagant gifts, lavish gestures.
Makes sense. They're definitely a part of the equation. Yeah. And then you have bar hostesses in some countries. What's their story?
In certain cultures, hostess bars are very much a part of the social and business scene. And the women who work there, they cultivate a sophisticated image, often using luxury brands like Chanel suits to project this aura of refinement.
It was about image, right? Projecting a certain message.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating look at how different social groups with their own unique aspirations and motivations contribute to this whole tapestry of luxury consumption.
Speaking of tapestry, there's this whole trend of caviar and popcorn, where people mix high-end and inexpensive items.
It's all about creating a personal style, blending the high and the low. You might see someone sporting a designer handbag with jeans from a local market.
It's like this high-low mix, creating something unique.
And it illustrates this idea of luxury nibblers, people who might not be able to afford a whole luxury wardrobe, but still want to indulge in a few key pieces.
It's like dipping their toes into the world of luxury.
Exactly. And as they become more affluent, this nibbling often turns into a deeper engagement.
So we've talked about Japan and China, but what about South Korea? Their relationship with luxury seems particularly conflicted, I guess.
South Korea is fascinating because you have this clash between Confucian values of frugality and this growing desire for luxury.
It's like they're pulled in two directions.
Exactly. There's this guilt associated with spending too much, but at the same time, there's this pressure to have certain things.
The book uses the phrase beauty and debt.
Very fitting. South Korea is obsessed with beauty, and that, combined with easy access to credit, fuels a lot of spending on cosmetics, skincare, even plastic surgery.
It can come at a cost, right?
Debt is a real issue. And then there's the genuine fakes problem.
Counterfeits.
Yes. High-quality knockoffs that are so good, it's hard to tell them apart from the real thing. It's a big challenge for luxury brands.
Now on to India, a country with such a long and intricate history with luxury.
India's relationship with luxury is deeply rooted in tradition, in craftsmanship. But the recent economic boom has created this whole new class of luxury consumers. It's a fascinating interplay between the old and the new.
They're navigating this balance between Western brands and their own heritage, right?
Exactly. Some consumers are drawn to Western brands as symbols of modernity and sophistication, while others are looking to support homegrown Indian brands that represent their cultural heritage.
Makes sense. India's consumer market is so diverse. You have these established families with their own tastes, and then these new entrepreneurs who are eager to make their mark.
It's a dynamic market full of potential, but luxury brands need to understand the nuances of each segment.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how luxury brands create this whole cult around their products. The book calls it showbuzz marketing.
It's a very clever approach. Think celebrity endorsements, big events, media coverage, partnerships. All these elements work together to create this sense of excitement and desirability.
They make you feel like you're missing out if you're not a part of it.
Exactly. Luxury brands are masters at storytelling, weaving narratives around their heritage and values. It creates an emotional connection that goes beyond the product itself.
They tap into this very human desire for status and belonging.
Absolutely. And social networkers play a big role here.
Influencers.
Yes. They're the tastemakers, the trendsetters. They make luxury feel both aspirational and attainable.
It's all about creating a sense of community, exclusivity, smart marketing, for sure.
It's been remarkably effective, particularly in Asia.
But it's not all smooth sailing. The book also dives into the issue of genuine fakes, counterfeits.
A huge problem for luxury brands. These knockoffs are getting so good that even experts have trouble telling the difference.
There's a story in the book about a counterfeiter in South Korea who was actually selling fake Hermes Kelly bags in real stores.
That's wild.
It shows how sophisticated these operations have become. We're not talking about street vendors anymore. These are organized networks with global reach.
So what can brands do to fight this? It's a multi-pronged approach. Investing in anti-counterfeiting technology, educating consumers, working with law enforcement.
Technology is playing a big role too, right?
Absolutely. E-commerce has made luxury more accessible, social media is huge for brand building, and brands are using data to understand consumer behavior.
We've talked about so much, the rise of the Asian market, marketing strategies, counterfeits, but what about the future? What trends are we seeing?
That's the million-dollar question. One of the most exciting trends is the emergence of Asian luxury brands.
Right. We touched on that earlier. Tell me more.
There's this growing sense of national pride, a desire to celebrate Asian heritage and craftsmanship. Consumers are drawn to brands that reflect their own cultural identities.
It's like they're reclaiming the narrative of luxury.
Exactly. And there's no shortage of talent. We're seeing designers who are pushing boundaries, blending tradition and innovation, creating some really amazing products.
Give me some examples. Who are these Asian brands to watch?
Well, there's Shangxia, a Chinese brand backed by Hermes. They're known for their exquisite craftsmanship, and they're taking traditional Chinese art forms like lacquerware and porcelain and giving them a modern twist.
Like a cultural exchange, bringing Asian artistry to the world stage.
Exactly. But it's not just about reinterpreting the past. It's also about innovation. Gentle Monster, the South Korean eyewear brand, is a great example. Their designs are bold and experimental, and they've done collaborations with big names like Alexander Wang and Tilda Swinton.
These brands are definitely making a statement. The Asian market is just buzzing with potential. It's exciting to think about what the next decade will bring.
Will Asian consumers stay loyal to those big Western brands? Or will these new Asian brands rise to the top? Only time will tell.
We're back for the final part of our luxury deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, but before we wrap up, I want to circle back to Japan for a sec. They were the pioneers, right? So what can luxury brands learn from their experience?
Well, one thing that stands out is this lasting preference for Western luxury brands, even over their own local brands.
Why do you think that is? Just brand recognition?
It's a bit more complicated. I think, a lot of Asian consumers, even in a place like Japan with such a rich culture, they still see Western brands, especially European ones, as, I don't know, having this higher level of quality, craftsmanship, heritage even, almost like a built-in bias, regardless of national pride.
Interesting. Even though a lot of manufacturing has moved to Asia for, cost reasons.
It really shows you the power of a brand story, the importance of keeping that image of exclusivity and quality. Another thing about Japan, it's all about service, impeccable service. It's a key part of the luxury experience there.
Right, right. Japanese salespeople, they're known for being super attentive.
Oh, absolutely. But it's more than just politeness. It's like this art form, making the customer feel valued, pampered, special. Luxury brands going into any Asian market, they should really take note.
Service, got it. Anything else we can learn from Japan?
I think educating Asian consumers is really important about the brand's heritage, the craftsmanship, the stories behind the products, especially those new to luxury. They want to understand, they want to appreciate what goes into these items. It's not just about the logo anymore.
Substance over style, in a way.
Exactly. Luxury in Asia, it's not just about showing off how much money you have. It's about having good taste, knowledge, and appreciation for the finer things.
Okay, that makes sense. So understanding cultural values, social dynamics, that's key, right?
Absolutely. What works in Japan might not work in China or India. We talked about the contrast between Japan's subtle elegance and China's love of flashy displays. And then you have India with its own mix of old money, new money, and young money. It's a whole different ballgame.
So many different aspirations, anxieties, cultural things to consider.
Exactly. Luxury brands have to be smart, culturally aware. It's a balancing act for sure.
The book also mentions regional trends. Like in Southeast Asia, how do you market fall and winter collections when it's basically hot all year round?
It's a great example of how climate can really influence what people buy. In Southeast Asia, it's all about accessories, watches, handbags, things you can enjoy year-round.
So luxury isn't this like one-size-fits-all thing. It's got to adapt to local contexts.
Absolutely, and that's something luxury brands really need to understand if they want to succeed in Asia. Okay, but let's talk about one of the most interesting trends we're seeing, the rise of Asian luxury brands themselves.
Yes, tell me everything.
Oh.
What's driving this? Why are these brands popping up now and challenging the big Western names?
Well, there's this growing sense of national pride, a desire to celebrate their own heritage and craftsmanship. People are drawn to brands that reflect their own culture, not just some Western idea of what luxury is.
Like Asia's taking back the luxury story in a way.
You got it. Creating brands that resonate with Asian sensibilities, aesthetics, values, and the talent is there, let me tell you. We're seeing this new wave of designers. They're pushing boundaries, blending tradition with innovation. Really exciting stuff.
Can you give me some examples? Which brands are making a splash?
Well, we mentioned Shangxia, the Chinese brand backed by Hermes. They're known for incredible craftsmanship, and they're taking traditional Chinese art forms like lacquerware and porcelain and giving them a modern twist.
It's like they're sharing their culture with the world while also redefining what luxury means in Asia itself.
Exactly. But it's not just about looking back, it's about pushing forward, too. Look at Gentle Monster, the South Korean eyewear brand. Their designs are so bold and unique, and they've done collaborations with some huge names like Alexander Wang and Tilda Swinton.
The Asian luxury market, it's just bursting with potential. I can't wait to see what happens in the next 10 years.
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Will Asian consumers stick with those big Western brands, or will these new Asian brands take over? We'll have to wait and see.
So much to think about. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our luxury deep dive. It's been an incredible journey through the cult of the luxury brand. We've learned so much about the history, the consumer trends, the marketing strategies, the counterfeit problem, and even what the future might hold.
It's been a pleasure unpacking all of this with you. Luxury, it really is this fascinating mix of culture, economics, and, well, just our basic human desires.
We've gone from the very beginnings of luxury to its explosion in Asia.
Right.
I've looked at how brands create this devoted following, and we've even peeked into the future of this dynamic market.
And I think one of the key takeaways is that luxury in Asia, it's not just about stuff. It's about identity, aspiration, telling a story about who you are and where you belong in the world.
Absolutely. So before we go, let's recap our top 10 takeaways from this deep dive. Ready?
I'm ready. Number one, Asia is the world's biggest and fastest growing market for luxury brands.
Number 2, this incredible growth comes from rapid economic development, the breakdown of old social structures, and that democratization of luxury we talked about back in the 90s.
Number three, different types of consumers in Asia, from the super rich to those just starting to explore luxury, they all interact with luxury in different ways. So brands have to be really smart about how they market to each group.
Number 4, Japan was the trailblazer, the first in Asia to really experience this luxury boom. So their experience holds some important lessons for brands.
Number five, in China, luxury is very much about showing off your newfound wealth and status, and there's a strong preference for Western brands.
Number 6, South Korea has this national obsession of beauty, and easy credit has made it easier for people to buy luxury cosmetics and skincare, but it's also led to some problems with debt.
Number seven, India's luxury market is super diverse, with old money, new money, and a rising generation of young, affluent consumers.
Number 8, the future of luxury in Asia will be shaped by the emergence of Asian luxury brands, the growing influence of male consumers, and this trend towards more discreet, understated luxury.
Number nine, those genuine fakes we discussed, they highlight the ongoing challenge of counterfeiting, which means brands need to be really vigilant and consumers need to be informed.
And lastly, number 10, for luxury brands to truly thrive in Asia, they need to understand each market's unique cultural nuances and adapt their strategies accordingly.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking out those hidden gems of knowledge.